The sun peeked through the curtains of a modest white house in a quiet Connecticut suburb. Birds chirped outside. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the hallway. Jennifer stretched in bed, blinking at the soft morning light. She pulled on her robe, tied her hair back, and padded down the carpeted stairs. In the kitchen, Kevin, her husband of 3 years, was already pouring 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, smiling. Jennifer smiled back.
Smells like you're trying to win me over again." "Always," Kevin replied, handing her the warm mug. Their mornings were like this. Simple, warm, familiar. Kevin, an engineer, always made time to start the day with her. Jennifer, a pharmacist, often said this little ritual was the best part of her morning. They didn't need grand gestures. Just coffee, a shared look, the kind of quiet love that doesn't shout. It stays. That morning, Jennifer glanced out the kitchen window. Their backyard garden was waking up for spring. Tulips stretching toward the sun, roses still shy in the soil. "We should trim the hedges this weekend," she said, sipping her coffee. Kevin nodded. "And maybe build that raised bed for tomatoes." They both smiled. It was the kind of morning people dream of. Calm, safe, normal. But sometimes, perfect mornings are just the opening scene in a story that's about to break your heart. Sunday dinners at Jennifer's parents' house were a long-standing tradition. The table was always set neatly ceramic plates, folded napkins, and her mother Dorothy's famous baked chicken steaming in the center. Her father, Robert, poured the wine, humming softly. He'd talk about his latest garden project while Jennifer helped plate the food. Amy, her younger sister, usually sat across from her, quiet, polite, and always a little reserved. She answered questions, smiled when expected, but rarely initiated conversation. Still, nothing ever seemed wrong. Jennifer chalked it up to personality differences. She was the stable, career-focused one. Amy had bounced between jobs, still lived at home, and never quite found her path. But there was no jealousy, no tension, just silence. "Glad you could make it," Dorothy would say with a warm hug. "It's always better with both my girls here." Jennifer smiled, and for a while she believed that. Dinner was filled with light laughter. Robert bragged about his tomatoes. Dorothy complained about book club drama. Amy nodded along, occasionally offering a dry joke that surprised everyone. It felt like family. But in hindsight, Jennifer would later admit there was something off. Not loud, not sharp, just a subtle coldness, a delay in eye contact, like someone behind the smiles was waiting for the right moment. It started with a voice. Kevin was in the garage sorting through his toolbox when he heard muffled talking near the open kitchen window. He paused. It was Dorothy's voice, Jennifer's mom on the phone. I don't know if she suspects anything yet." Kevin froze, slowly lowering the wrench in his hand. "I can't bring it up. Not yet. We need to wait for Amy to give the signal." Then silence. Kevin stepped back, confused. "Suspects what?" he whispered to himself. That evening, he didn't say a word to Jennifer. Not yet. He wasn't even sure what he'd heard. Maybe it was about a surprise birthday. Maybe it wasn't about Jennifer at all. But something in Dorothy's tone unsettled him. It wasn't worry. It was calculation. Over the next few days, Jennifer noticed her mother dodging certain questions. When Jennifer asked if they could visit next weekend, Dorothy hesitated. "Let's wait a bit. Things are a little hectic right now." Jennifer blinked. "Is everything okay?" "Oh, of course, sweetheart. Just busy." Busy? Her mother never used to say that. Amy, on the other hand, had become strangely helpful. She texted Jennifer daily with little updates. "I cleaned the shed today." "I reorganized Mom's spice rack. Thinking we should do something special soon, all 5 of us." It was sweet, almost too sweet. Kevin began keeping quiet, observing. He watched how Amy's tone had shifted, how she was suddenly the golden daughter. One night, Jennifer said, "Is it me, or is Amy acting?" Kevin looked at her for a moment. Maybe she's just trying to reconnect, but he wasn't sure, and neither was Jennifer.
That soft tension, the kind you can't name but can't ignore, started to settle in the house like dust in sunlight. It started with a cheerful phone call. Jennifer was at the pharmacy sorting prescriptions when her phone buzzed. It was her mom. "Sweetheart," Dorothy said, "I've got an idea. What do you say to a family hiking trip?" Jennifer paused. "A hike?" "Yes, just the 5 of us. Fresh air, a little exercise. It's been ages since we all did something outdoors together." Jennifer smiled at the thought. That actually sounds nice. Kevin was all for it when she told him that evening. "We've been cooped up too long. It could be good for everyone." But the next night, Amy called, and her enthusiasm was strange. "Okay," she said rapid fire. "So I found this trail at Mount Tom. It's an intermediate path, 3 hours round trip. There's a waterfall halfway and an observation deck at the top. I'll pack lunch. I'll bring a first aid kit. I've got maps printed."
She sounded like someone organizing a military operation. Jennifer laughed. "Amy, you've really thought of everything." Amy's voice lightened. "I just want this to be a perfect day." When Jennifer hung up, Kevin looked at her. "She's really into this," he said carefully. "She's just excited," Jennifer replied. "It's probably the first time she's felt included in something in a while." Kevin nodded slowly, but the unease in his chest didn't leave. Something about Amy's voice felt too eager, like she wasn't planning a picnic, she was planning an event. And events, Kevin thought, can have endings you don't come back from. The days leading up to the hike felt off. Phone calls with Jennifer's parents had started to sound rehearsed, like they were reading from a script neither she nor Kevin had seen. Dorothy would call and ask the same question every time. "You're still okay for Saturday, right? We're really looking forward to it." Her tone was too bright, like a hostess checking RSVPs to a party she didn't actually want to throw. Then Robert would chime in, just once, always the same line. "This trip will be good for all of us, like old times." Except it didn't feel like old times, not even close. Amy's texts grew more frequent. "Did you pack a jacket? Don't forget sunscreen. I made your favorite sandwich, turkey and mustard. Right?" She smiled too much in video calls. She laughed too loud at things that weren't funny. She called Kevin brother, like it was a title instead of a relationship. "Is it just me?" Kevin whispered one night. "Or does Amy feel like a commercial?" Jennifer stared at the ceiling in bed. "She's just trying," she said quietly. Maybe this hike is her way of fixing things. But even as she said it, a question flickered in her mind. Fix what, exactly? Something about her parents' warmth felt forced. Something about Amy's sweetness felt sticky. And as Saturday approached, Jennifer began to feel like a guest in her own family. The night before the hike, Amy arrived at Jennifer and Kevin's house unannounced. She carried a rolled-up map in one hand and a backpack in the other. "Hey," she beamed. "Quick update, I changed the route a little." Jennifer blinked. "What do you mean, changed?" Amy unrolled the map on the kitchen table. "This trail here, it's got a better view. The observation deck sits right on the cliff. You can see the whole valley. It'll be beautiful." Kevin leaned in, frowning. "It looks steep and narrow." "It is," Amy said brightly, "but it's totally safe. I read a bunch of reviews. People love it." Jennifer looked at the dotted red line on the map. It curved dangerously close to the cliff's edge. Kevin pointed again. "This section here, there's no marked barrier." Amy waved a hand. "It's fine. We'll be careful. Come on, Kev, don't be such a worrywart. You'll love the view." Her tone was light, almost playful, but her eyes didn't match. They were fixed. Kevin felt his stomach twist. There was something behind that cheer, something rehearsed. When Amy left, Jennifer turned to him. "You're overthinking it." But Kevin didn't answer right away, because something about that map felt wrong, like it wasn't leading them toward a view. It was leading them toward a decision, and the decision had already been made.
The trail narrowed, then opened into light. They had reached the summit. The sky was wide and clean, painted with soft clouds. The trees thinned out at the edge of the cliff, giving way to an incredible view of the Connecticut River basin stretching endlessly below. Jennifer stepped forward first. She moved slowly toward the barrier, her shoes crunching against gravel. The wind was gentle but constant, brushing her hair back as she took in the scenery. Kevin followed close behind. He smiled, hand on her shoulder. "It's beautiful," he said. She nodded. "Yeah, it really is." Behind them, Amy arrived, map folded in one hand. Their parents, Robert and Dorothy, walked quietly in step. No one spoke at first. Even the birds seemed to hush. The moment felt suspended, like time itself had paused. Jennifer gripped the railing and looked out across the valley. The mountains in the distance were a faded blue. The sky above seemed impossibly high. It was the kind of view that made you forget everything for a moment, the kind of beauty that made betrayal feel impossible. But just behind her, something had shifted. Jennifer stood at the edge, hands resting on the metal railing, her eyes tracing the horizon. Behind her, footsteps. Amy's. She stopped just inches away. Her voice no longer sweet, no longer smiling, cut through the wind like a blade. "If you were gone, everything would finally be perfect." Jennifer turned. "Amy, what are you—" But she never finished the sentence. Amy shoved her hard with both hands. Jennifer's body lurched forward. The metal railing caught her for half a second. Then her grip slipped. She was falling. Kevin shouted, "Jennifer!" and lunged. But in that same split second, Robert and Dorothy rushed forward. Robert hit him from the side. Dorothy pushed from behind. Kevin lost balance. The last thing he saw before going over the edge was Jennifer's wide, terrified eyes. Then air, wind, rocks, silence. The wind tore the scream from her throat. Jennifer tumbled through open air, arms flailing, hair whipping across her face. The sky spun, the valley blurred, then impact. Her back slammed into a jagged rock ledge with a sickening crack. Her lungs seized. No sound came out. The world blinked white with pain. She slid, bounced once, then stopped. Still, somehow she hadn't fallen all the way. Just below her, a narrow ledge had caught her, barely. Then another sound, a body. Kevin. He landed a few feet away, hitting the rocks hard. Blood burst from his forehead as his body rolled onto his side. He groaned. "Alive. Jennifer," he rasped, breathless. She turned her head slowly, eyes wide with terror. Above them, the edge of the cliff. Shadows, voices, footsteps. Kevin reached out, barely touching her hand. "Play dead," he whispered. "They're watching." Jennifer froze. The pain was overwhelming. Her ribs screamed, her arm tingled, her back throbbed. But she didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe too loud. From above, gravel trickled down. A voice called out, "I don't see any movement." Amy. Another voice, Dorothy's. Hesitant. Shaking. What if? What if they survived? Then silence. Jennifer shut her eyes and waited. Jennifer didn't move. She couldn't. Her body screamed with pain, but she stayed frozen, barely breathing. Above, rocks shifted, gravel fell. And then Amy's voice drifted through the wind. "Check if they're dead." Silence. Then the crunch of footsteps near the cliff's edge. Jennifer squeezed her eyes shut tighter. Kevin's hand was still barely touching hers, cold, tense, unmoving. Dorothy's voice came next. Fragile, cracked. What have we done? Jennifer's chest tightened. Her mother's voice didn't sound evil. It sounded broken. But that didn't matter now. Another voice, Robert's this time, flat, mechanical. "We agreed. No turning back."
Jennifer could hear the argument forming above, hushed tones, words slipping between fear and justification. But she didn't focus on them. She focused on the way Kevin's fingers didn't twitch, on the faint warmth of his palm, on the way the wind carried their silence like a shield. Amy spoke again. If they're not moving, they're dead. A pause. Let's go. Footsteps retreated. The wind blew. Jennifer still didn't move. Not yet. They waited until the last sound faded. Then Kevin whispered, "Jennifer, don't move yet." His voice was strained thin with pain, but steady. "I need to tell you something, everything, before they come back." Jennifer opened her eyes slowly. Her body still throbbed, but her mind was sharp, now alert, cold with shock. Kevin's breath was shallow. Blood still dripped down the side of his face. "I've known something was wrong for weeks, maybe longer." Jennifer's eyes searched his face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to believe it," he said softly. "And because I didn't want you to live in fear, not until I was sure." He swallowed hard. "I started noticing things. Amy showing up at your parents' house every day." "Weekdays, while you were at work." Jennifer blinked. "Every day?" Kevin nodded. "At first, I thought she was just being helpful. Then I overheard a phone call in our driveway. Amy was in her car, crying, yelling at your mother." Jennifer's heart pounded. She said, "If Jennifer didn't exist, you'd love me more. If she were gone, I'd be all you had." Jennifer's breath caught. "Dorothy told her to calm down," Kevin continued, "but Amy wouldn't stop. She kept repeating it day after day."
"I saw it. I heard it. Your parents, they started to change. They looked exhausted, like they were being worn down. And I think," she broke them. Jennifer covered her mouth, tears welling. "She was poisoning them, slowly, with guilt, with lies." Kevin looked straight at her. "She wanted to be you." Silence. Only the wind answered back. The pain faded, not in her body, but in her memory, and in its place, images began to rise. Jennifer, 7 years old, standing proudly in a ballet costume. Dorothy, clapping. Robert, taking pictures. Amy, 5, in the corner, watching, silent. Jennifer, age 12, holding her first report card with straight A's. "Of course you did," her mom beamed. "You're our little genius." Amy, 10, behind her, face neutral. No one asked about her grades. Jennifer, 17, prom dress, glowing in the hallway mirror. Her father kissed her forehead. Amy stood by the stairs, arms folded. "I don't like dresses," she muttered. These memories had always felt harmless, just childhood. But now, with Kevin's words echoing, everything looked different. Amy hadn't been sad. She had been watching, measuring, waiting. She didn't snap. She planned. Every rejection, every comparison, every time Jennifer was praised, Amy absorbed it like venom in her veins. And when adulthood didn't give her what childhood denied, she rewrote the rules. If she couldn't be Jennifer's equal, she would erase Jennifer altogether. The sun was still high, but the shadows felt longer now. Jennifer's fingers dug into gravel as she pulled herself forward inch by inch. Her arms trembled. Her legs dragged behind her like they didn't belong to her body. Every breath stabbed her ribs. Every shift in movement screamed through her spine. Kevin followed close behind. Blood matted his hair. One eye was nearly swollen shut, but he moved slow, deliberate, like every inch forward was borrowed time. They said nothing. There was no room for words, just grit, just instinct. The ledge they were on stretched along the cliffside, narrow but stable. Below them, nothing but rocks and trees. Above them, betrayal. Jennifer's breath hitched. Her mind replayed Amy's voice. "If you were gone." She clenched her jaw and pushed forward. Kevin reached ahead, steadying her with one bruised hand. "We're not dying here," he whispered. Jennifer nodded, even though tears blurred her vision. They had no map, no rope, no real plan, but they had each other, and as long as they could crawl, they weren't finished yet. The cliffside leveled out just slightly. A small patch of dirt opened beneath a broken tree limb, and Jennifer collapsed into it, chest heaving. Kevin dropped beside her, gasping. They were still bleeding, still broken, but they were alive. Kevin reached into his pocket, fingers fumbling past pain. His phone, still there. He held it up. No bars. He stood holding the phone high. Nothing. Jennifer watched silent, holding her breath like it might help. Then 1 bar, flickering. Then 2. "Come on," Kevin whispered. The signal held. He dialed. 911. The ringing seemed to last forever. Then, 911, what's your emergency? His voice shook. "My name is Kevin Adler. My wife and we've been pushed off a cliff. Mount Tom, observation deck. We're alive, but we're hurt." Jennifer could hear the operator's voice asking questions. Kevin answered them all, his voice trembling but clear. Then, distant, faint, but real, sirens. Jennifer's head dropped back in the dirt, and for the first time since the fall, she let herself believe they might survive. The parking lot at Mount Tom was filled with flashing lights, 2 police cruisers, 1 ambulance, uniformed officers, EMTs. Amy stood near the hood of a squad car, hands flying, voice full of panic. "They must have taken a wrong turn. We lost sight of them. We were searching, I swear." Robert and Dorothy sat nearby, pale and shaking, eyes darting between the trees. Then, from the shadows at the edge of the trail, Jennifer appeared. Clothes torn, face bloodied, limping. Kevin followed behind her, leaning on a tree branch, face swollen, shirt soaked in red. Silence fell like thunder. Amy's mouth dropped open, her voice caught in her throat. "Jennifer!" Jennifer didn't answer. She kept walking. Kevin stood beside her. One of the officers turned. "Are you the victims?" Jennifer nodded slowly. "Yes, we were pushed off the cliff. By our family." The words didn't shake. Her voice didn't break. She spoke like someone who had nothing left to fear. Dorothy gasped. Robert closed his eyes. Amy finally snapped. "No, they're lying. I don't know what happened. I didn't." "Enough," the officer said flatly. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Amy turned to her mother. "Say something. Tell them—" But Dorothy was already crying. Robert looked at the ground. Jennifer stared straight ahead. Truth had arrived. And this time it didn't need to scream. Amy screamed. "This isn't happening. You're making a mistake. She's lying." Her voice cracked, shrill and frantic. The officer tightened the cuffs, unfazed. "You have the right to remain silent." Amy thrashed in his grip. "No, let me explain. I didn't. They're lying." Another officer moved toward Robert and Dorothy. Robert broke down first. Tears fell down his face as he looked at Jennifer. We didn't mean for it to go this far." Dorothy shook her head, hands trembling, voice barely audible. "She said it was the only way," Amy said. Jennifer didn't flinch. She stepped forward, blood dried on her face, her body bruised and battered. And in the silence that followed, she said just one thing. "They pushed us." No yelling, no anger. Just a truth laid bare in the open, the kind of truth no one could run from. Robert was cuffed. Dorothy sobbed into her hands as her wrists were secured. Amy was still screaming. But Jennifer? She just watched. She had already said everything that needed to be said. The courtroom was silent. Jennifer sat in the witness chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. Across the aisle, Amy stared ahead, expression flat, detached. Not once did she look at her sister. The prosecution delivered the final blow. Amy Williams has been evaluated by 2 forensic psychiatrists. She meets the criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Gasps echoed. Jennifer closed her eyes. The diagnosis explained everything, and yet it explained nothing. The judge's voice rang clear. 15 years in state prison with mandatory psychiatric treatment. Amy didn't flinch. No apology, no regret, just emptiness. Then came her parents' turn. Robert and Dorothy stood side by side, pale and trembling. The judge addressed them. "This court acknowledges that you were manipulated, but ignorance is not innocence. 5 years probation, mandatory community service, weekly psychological counseling." Dorothy cried. Robert nodded in silence. Jennifer watched without a tear, because this wasn't closure. Not really, but it was a start, a line drawn between what had been taken and what she would reclaim. The hallway outside the courtroom was quiet. Jennifer stepped out, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Behind her, the echo of chains, Amy being led away. Then, Jennifer. She turned. Dorothy stood alone, her hands twisted nervously, face streaked with tears. "You're still my daughter," she whispered. Jennifer didn't move. Her eyes, tired but clear, looked straight at the woman who gave her life. "But you're not my mother anymore." Silence. Dorothy reached out, fingers trembling, but Jennifer stepped back. No drama, no screaming, no slap. Just a space that would never be filled again. Jennifer turned, walked away. Dorothy stood there frozen in her guilt. It was over, and nothing would ever bring them back. 6 months passed. No trials, no screams, no lies. Just mornings filled with light and quiet. Jennifer and Kevin had moved into a new home, not far, but far enough. He walked with a slight limp. She still had scars on her shoulder, but their hands always found each other. Their garden, once forgotten, was now in full bloom. Lavender, daisies, baby's breath, tiny symbols of survival growing from soil that had known pain. Jennifer knelt among the flowers one morning, gloves stained with dirt and joy. Kevin brought her coffee, same as always. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, eyes on the petals. "I am, finally." They didn't talk much about the past, because feeling didn't need words, only sunlight, soil, and time. Jennifer and Kevin didn't rebuild their lives alone. They didn't need DNA or shared last names. What they needed was kindness, and they found it. At the local pharmacy, coworkers left handwritten notes in her locker. "You're stronger than anyone I know." At church, a retired nurse offered to help with Kevin's physical therapy. Their neighbors brought over soup stories and laughter that filled the home like old music. There were no expectations, no obligations, no twisted strings of guilt and blood. Only love, freely given, quietly received. One Sunday afternoon, surrounded by these people, laughing over pie and spilled coffee, Jennifer looked around the table. "This," she whispered to Kevin, "this is our family." He nodded, eyes soft. They had lost so much, but they had chosen even more. One evening, under soft garden lights, Jennifer and Kevin sat on the porch swing. A breeze passed through the lavender. Jennifer sipped her tea, looked up at the stars, and asked softly, "Do you ever think about children?" Kevin smiled, not surprised. "All the time." They didn't talk about genes or bloodlines. They talked about bedtime stories, about teaching kindness, about raising someone to know that love isn't earned, it's given. "Blood means nothing without love," Jennifer whispered. Kevin reached for her hand. "Then we'll teach them what love really is." That night, they planted a new seed in the garden, not just a flower, but a legacy, one that would grow in truth, in trust, in the freedom to choose your family and protect it fiercely. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, respect, and choice. Jennifer's story reminds us of a painful truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us are the very ones who hurt us the most. She learned through betrayal, survival, and healing that being related doesn't mean being loyal. So here's what we take from this. You're allowed to walk away from toxic bloodlines. You're allowed to build your own circle of people who choose you, protect you, and love you for who you are. And most of all, you're allowed to heal without giving access back to those who broke you. Because love isn't earned through guilt, it's offered freely, and it's always your choice who you call family. If this story moved you, if it made you stop and think, don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. Hear it through her eyes, we tell stories that matter, stories that hurt, stories that heal. Because behind every strong woman, there's a storm she survived. And we're here to honor that. Tap like. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family. And remember, you're not alone. This is more than a channel. It's a voice. It's a mirror. It's a safe space. Join us and see the world through her eyes.